The ship was small. That was the first thing the aliens noticed when humanity arrived at the council station. Among vessels the size of mountains, the human delegation came in a craft no bigger than a trading barge. The aliens watched from their observation decks and laughed quietly among themselves. Another young species, they thought. Another group of primitives who had stumbled upon faster-than-light travel and now believed themselves worthy of standing among the great powers. Admiral Una Parks stood at the bridge window and looked at the station ahead. It was the size of a moon, covered in lights that blinked like stars. Thousands of ships moved around it, like insects around a hive. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. First contact. The day humanity would join the galactic community. She did not feel excited. She felt careful. "Ambassador," she said, without turning around. "We are approaching the main dock." Junho Kim walked up beside her. He was an old man with gray hair and calm eyes. Before becoming Earth's first ambassador to the stars, he had been a historian. He had spent 40 years studying how civilizations rose and fell. He understood patterns. He understood power. "They have already decided what we are," Junho said quietly. "Look at the ships they sent to greet us. Small patrol craft, no honor guard. They see us as children." Una nodded. "Should we be offended?" "No," the ambassador replied. "We should be grateful. There is no greater advantage than being underestimated." The docking took an hour. Human engineers had to adapt their systems to match the alien ports. When the doors finally opened, a delegation of council officials stood waiting. They were led by a creature that stood 3 meters tall. His body was covered in hard black shell, and his eyes were like polished stones. This was Counselor Vorath of the Krell Empire, one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "Welcome," Vorath said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "You are the humans." "We are," Junho said with a polite bow. "Thank you for receiving us." Vorath's eyes moved slowly over the human delegation. 12 people in simple uniforms, no guards, no weapons that he could see. He made a sound that might have been amusement. "Follow me," he said. "The council is waiting." The council chamber was built to intimidate. The ceiling rose so high it disappeared into shadow. The seats were arranged in a great circle, rising upward like the inside of a bowl. Hundreds of alien species sat watching as the humans were led to a small platform at the center. Above them, on the highest seats, sat the 12 senior counselors. At the very top was a creature that looked like a floating cloud of light. This was High Arbiter Melox, leader of the council for over 3,000 years. "Humanity," Melox's voice echoed through the chamber without any visible mouth. "You have achieved the threshold. You have touched the stars. For this, you may join the Galactic Union." Junho bowed his head. "We are honored. There are conditions," Melox continued. "All young species must follow the integration protocols. These rules exist for your protection and the stability of the galaxy." A beam of light shone down, and a small device floated toward Junho. He took it and looked at the screen. The list was long, very long. Admiral Una read over his shoulder. Her face remained calm, but her hands tightened into fists. The protocols were simple. Humanity was allowed to exist. That was all. No military ships larger than patrol craft. No weapons above basic defensive systems. No colonization beyond Earth's solar system without Council permission. All scientific discoveries must be shared with the Council for review. A yearly tribute of resources must be paid to senior species as gratitude for protection. There were 3,000 rules. Every single one was a chain. Counselor Vorath leaned forward in his seat. "These terms are generous," he said. "Many species waited centuries before receiving such an offer. You should be grateful." Junho looked up at the massive alien. Then he looked at the ancient arbiter. Then he looked around the chamber at the hundreds of species who watched with bored or amused expressions. They had seen this before. Young species always complained at first. Then they accepted. They always accepted. What choice did they have? "We thank the Council for this opportunity," Junho said. His voice was steady and warm. "We will study these protocols carefully." Vorath made that grinding sound again. "Study quickly. You have 1 cycle to sign." The humans were escorted out of the chamber. They were given small quarters near the bottom of the station, far from the important areas. The rooms were plain and cold. But they were alone, and that was what mattered. Admiral Yuna locked the door and turned to Juno. "They want to make us slaves. Yes, we cannot accept this. No." She waited for him to say more. The old man walked to the window and looked out at the endless darkness of space. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere out there were 8 billion people, waiting to hear if humanity had found friends among the stars. "What do we do?" Yuna asked. Junho was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft but certain. "We smile," he said. "We nod. We thank them for their kindness. We sign whatever they put in front of us." Yuna stared at him. "You want us to submit?" The old ambassador turned around. There was something in his eyes now. Something hard and patient. "I want them to think we submitted," he said. "There is a difference." He walked to the table and sat down. His fingers touched the device containing the integration protocols. "History teaches us many things, Admiral. One lesson stands above all others. Never fight an enemy when they expect you to fight. Never show your strength when they are watching. Build slowly. Build quietly. Let them forget you exist." And then, Junho smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a man who thought in decades instead of days. "Then we show them what humanity becomes when you try to put us in a cage." 1 week later, the human delegation signed the integration protocols. They thanked the Council for its wisdom. They promised to be good members of the galactic community. Then they boarded their small ship and returned to Earth. The Council forgot about them before they reached the edge of the system. That was their first mistake. Back on Earth, in a room buried deep underground, the leaders of every nation gathered. President Quan stood at the head of the table. She looked at the integration protocols displayed on the screen. "So this is what the galaxy offers us," she said. "Chains wrapped in pretty words." Junho stood beside her. "They believe we have no choice." The president looked around the room. Every face was hard. Every jaw was set. "Do we have a choice?" The old ambassador nodded slowly. "We always have a choice," he said. "It just depends on how patient we are willing to be." The vote was unanimous. Humanity would smile. Humanity would comply. And in the shadows, humanity would build something the galaxy had never seen. The chains would remain invisible until the day humanity decided to break them. 50 years is a long time to stay quiet, but humanity had learned patience. Director Minho Lee stood on the observation platform of Station Omega, watching the construction below. The station was hidden inside a hollowed asteroid at the edge of the solar system. From the outside, it looked like a dead rock drifting through space. From the inside, it was a city of fire and steel. Thousands of workers moved across scaffolding that wrapped around a shape so large it blocked out the stars. The ship was 3 kilometers long. Its hull was black as night, designed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. When it was finished, it would carry enough weapons to burn a continent. And it was only one of many. "How many does this make?" Minho asked. His assistant checked her tablet. "This is number 412, Director. The Oort Cloud facilities have completed another 200. The far colonies report 300 more in final assembly." Minho nodded. Almost 1,000 capital ships. And that was just the beginning. Far away, in a laboratory that officially did not exist, Dr. Hana Choi stared at the data on her screen. Her hands were shaking. After 15 years of failure, they had finally done it. "Run it again," she whispered. Her team ran the simulation again. The results were the same. The mathematics did not lie. Fold space technology, the ability to bend the fabric of reality and cross the galaxy in hours instead of weeks. The Council's greatest scientists had declared it impossible 3,000 years ago. They said the energy requirements were too high. They said the equations did not work. They were wrong. Hana picked up her communicator and called Earth. The connection was encrypted through 17 different systems, bouncing off satellites that were hidden among space debris. "This is Black Site 7, she said. "Tell the director we have a breakthrough. The impossible is now possible." On Earth, everything looked normal. The cities were the same size they had been 50 years ago. The population reports showed 8 billion people, just as the Council expected. The military consisted of small patrol ships that could barely fight off pirates. This was the lie humanity showed the galaxy. The truth was hidden in the numbers that no one ever checked. The real population was not 8 billion. It was 90 billion. Over the past 5 decades, humanity had expanded in secret. Colony ships disguised as mining vessels had carried millions to distant worlds. Children were born on planets the Council did not know existed. Cities rose on moons that were not on any map. Agent Wu Jin-so was responsible for keeping the lie alive. He was the head of the Special Intelligence Division, and his job was simple: make sure the galaxy never looked too closely at humanity. Every year, Council inspectors came to Earth. They counted ships, they measured weapons, they scanned for technology that violated the protocols. Every year, Wu Jin made sure they found exactly what they expected to find. Old ships with outdated engines sat in orbital docks, waiting to be inspected. Small factories produced primitive goods, while the real production happened in facilities built inside moons and asteroids. Scientists worked on approved projects, while the real breakthroughs happened in laboratories hidden beneath the ocean floor. The inspectors always left satisfied. Humanity was weak. Humanity was obedient. Humanity was not a threat. Wu Jin smiled every time they left. "You see what we want you to see." In the darkness beyond the solar system, Captain Taeho Baek commanded the hidden shipyard known as Ghost Harbor. It floated among the icy rocks of the Oort cloud, invisible to any scan. 2,000 workers lived here, building weapons that would change the galaxy. Today, they were testing a new fighter. Taeho watched from the control room as the small craft launched from the hangar bay. "Begin acceleration test," he ordered. The fighter shot forward. In 3 seconds, it reached speeds that would tear any Council ship apart. In 10 seconds, it crossed a distance that should have taken a minute. In 30 seconds, it was gone, nothing but a dot of light disappearing into the void. "Maximum velocity achieved," his officer reported. "The Council's fastest interceptors cannot match half this speed." Taeho leaned back in his chair. "How many of these can we build?" "With current resources, 20,000 in the next 5 years. 20,000 fighters that could outrun anything in the galaxy. 20,000 hunters that no prey could escape. And still, humanity built more." Director Minho traveled between the hidden facilities, checking progress. He was getting old now. His hair had turned white, and his steps were slower than they used to be. But his eyes were still sharp, and his mind still remembered the day he had made a promise. He had been a young officer when the integration protocols were signed. He had stood in the back of the room and watched the leaders of Earth pretend to submit. He had sworn that day that he would live to see the chains broken. Now, 50 years later, he was close. "Show me the fleet count," he said during a meeting with his commanders. The holographic display lit up with numbers. Capital ships, 4,200. Carriers, 600. Support vessels, 12,000. Fighter craft, 800,000. Troop transports, 900. And the Arcs, the great ships that were not just weapons, but mobile fortresses. 40 of them, each one 5 kilometers long, carrying enough firepower to fight an entire enemy fleet alone. The Council has no idea, one of the commanders said. Their last report estimated our total military at 300 patrol vessels. Minho smiled. Let them keep believing that. On a distant world called New Seoul, Governor Min Ji-yoon watched the sunset over fields of grain. This planet was not supposed to exist. According to council records, this region of space was empty, unexplored, worthless. Minji knew better. 40 million people lived here now. They had built cities and farms and schools. Children who had never seen Earth called this place home. She thought about what would happen if they ever discovered the truth. Would they accept it? Would they welcome humanity's growth? No. She knew the answer. The council did not want partners. They wanted servants. They had made that clear 50 years ago. Somewhere out there, a fleet was waiting. A fleet so large that the galaxy could not imagine it. One day, that fleet would emerge. One day, the council would learn what humanity had built in the shadows. Minji looked up at the stars and smiled. Not yet, she whispered to the night sky. But soon. The message came on a quiet morning. Director Minho read it in his office, alone. His hands trembled as he set down the tablet. After 50 years, the signal had finally come. The Krell Empire had decided to expand into what they thought was empty space. They were sending a fleet to claim systems at the edge of explored territory. They had chosen their targets. New Seoul was one of them. Minho closed his eyes. 50 years of patience, 50 years of silence, 50 years of building in the dark. It was almost time. He opened a secure channel to every hidden commander in human space. This is Director Lee, he said. Prepare for Operation Dawnbreak. The silent years are ending. Across 200 worlds, humanity began to wake. The Krell fleet arrived without warning. 500 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and filled the sky above New Seoul like a storm of black metal. Each ship was covered in spines and weapons. Each one was built for conquest. Governor Min Ji-yoon stood in her office and watched them come. She had known this day would arrive eventually. She had hoped it would not be so soon. Governor, her assistant said, voice shaking, they are hailing us. Put them through. The screen flickered, and a Krell commander appeared. He was massive, even by his species standards. His shell was decorated with marks of battle, and his stone eyes showed no emotion. I am War Master Gracchus, he said. By the authority of the Galactic Council, this system is now under Krell protection. You will surrender your colony and prepare for relocation. You have 24 hours. Minji kept her face calm. May I ask why the Council has decided to claim this system? We have lived here peacefully for decades. Gracchus made a sound like grinding rocks. You have no right to be here. Your species was restricted to your home system. You violated the integration protocols. Be grateful we are offering relocation instead of execution. The screen went dark. Minji stood in silence for a long moment. Then she turned to her assistant. Send a message to Earth. Use the emergency channel. Tell them the harvest is ready. Commander Jiwoo Shin was 32 years old. She had been born on New Seoul, one of the first generation to grow up on this hidden world. She had joined the Colony Defense Force at 18, trained in secret facilities, and risen through the ranks by being smarter and braver than anyone around her. Now she commanded the colony's entire military. 30 patrol ships, 2,000 soldiers, against 500 Krell warships carrying probably 100,000 troops. The mathematics were simple. They would lose. Jiwoo gathered her officers in the command center. Their faces were pale, but their eyes were determined. They knew what they were facing. They also knew what they were protecting. The civilians are being moved to the underground shelters, Jiwoo said. The Krell will not find them easily. Our job is to give Earth time to respond. One of her officers spoke up. Commander, with respect, our ships cannot survive more than a few minutes against that fleet. I know. Then what is the point? Jiwoo looked at him. She was not angry. She understood his fear. She felt it too. The point, she said quietly, is that we do not surrender. The point is that we fight. The point is that humanity does not kneel. She pulled up a tactical display. The Krell fleet hung in orbit like a cloud of death. We have 24 hours. We will use every second of them. We will make them remember that even when we were small, we were never weak. The hours passed like years. On New Sol, families said goodbye to each other. Children were taken to the shelters deep underground. Soldiers checked their weapons and wrote final messages to loved ones. The sky above them was filled with enemy ships, blocking out the stars. Commander Jiwoo stood on the bridge of her flagship, the small patrol vessel called Morning Star. It was old and slow and outgunned by everything in the Krell fleet. But it was hers, and she would fight with it until the end. All ships, form defensive line, she ordered. We hold position at the orbital threshold. Nothing gets through to the planet without going through us first. 30 ships moved into formation. They looked like toys compared to the Krell dreadnoughts. But they held their position. Far away, on Earth, Fleet Admiral Sun Woo-han received the emergency message in his private quarters. He read it twice, then he read it a third time. The harvest is ready. He had waited 50 years to hear those words. 50 years of preparation. 50 years of building and training and waiting in the shadows. Now, the moment had come. He walked to his command center. It was built inside a mountain, invisible from space, connected to every hidden facility in human territory. His staff stood at attention as he entered. Contact all fleet commanders, Sun Woo said. His voice was steady. Operation Dawnbreak is now active. All ships will prepare for immediate deployment. One of his officers hesitated. Sir, are we sure? Once we reveal ourselves, there is no going back. Sun Woo looked at the tactical display. It showed the Krell fleet at New Sol. It showed the tiny human defense force preparing to die. 40 million of our people are about to be killed or enslaved, he said. Commander Shin and her soldiers are preparing to sacrifice themselves to buy us time. There is nothing to discuss. We move now. He turned to the main screen and opened a channel that reached every corner of human space. This is Fleet Admiral Sun Woo-han, Supreme Commander of Earth's Armed Forces. For 50 years, we have hidden in the shadows. For 50 years, we have built and trained and waited. The time for waiting is over. His voice grew stronger. The Krell Empire has attacked our people. They believe we are weak. They believe we will submit. They are wrong. All fleet units, all stations, all colonies, you know your orders. You know your positions. Today, humanity stops hiding. Today, we show the galaxy what we have become. He paused. Operation Dawnbreak is go. May God have mercy on our enemies, because we will not. Across the galaxy, the hidden machinery of humanity's revenge began to move. In the Oort cloud, shipyard doors opened and thousands of warships activated their engines. On distant moons, hangars released fighters like swarms of angry insects. In asteroid bases, soldiers boarded transports and prepared for war. The fold space drives that Dr. Hana Choi had perfected began to spin up. Reality itself bent around the human fleets. creating tunnels through space that would carry them across the galaxy in heartbeats instead of weeks. Director Minho Lee, old and tired, watched from Station Omega as the great ships began to disappear into the folds of space. Tears ran down his cheeks. 50 years, he whispered. We kept the faith for 50 years. At New Sol, the countdown reached its final hour. War Master Gracchus sent a final message to the colony. Your time is up. Surrender now, or be destroyed. Commander Jiwoo stood on her bridge. Her crew looked at her, waiting for orders. Outside, the enemy fleet began to move forward. She opened a channel to all her ships. This is Commander Shin. The enemy is advancing. We will engage and hold them as long as possible. She took a breath. It has been an honor to serve with all of you. Today we show the galaxy what human courage looks like. Her ships powered up their weapons. 30 against 500. It should have been a massacre. Then the sky behind them tore open. The fabric of space itself screamed as it was torn apart. Great wounds of light opened behind the human defense line, each one larger than a city. Through them came shapes that blocked out the stars. The first ship to emerge was 3 kilometers long. Its hull was black as the void. And along its sides ran weapons that glowed with contained fire. This was the UES Eternal Soul, flagship of Fleet Admiral Sun Woo-han. Behind it came more ships, dozens, hundreds, thousands. Dreadnoughts the size of mountains emerged in perfect formation. Carriers released clouds of fighters that spread across the sky like silver dust. Battle cruisers with weapons that could crack planets took position in endless rows. The fold space ruptures kept opening. More ships poured through every second. The sky filled with humanity's hidden fleet until there was no darkness left. Only the hulls of warships stretching to every horizon. On the bridge of the Morning Star, Commander Jiwoo Shin stared at her sensors. The numbers kept climbing. 10,000 ships, 20,000, 30,000. Commander, her officer whispered, I don't understand. Where did they all come from? Jiwoo felt tears streaming down her face. Not tears of sadness, tears of something she had almost forgotten how to feel. Hope. From the shadows, she said. They came from the shadows. War Master Gracchus stood on his command deck and watched his sensors go insane. Every alarm was screaming. Every display was filled with red warnings. His fleet of 500 ships was now surrounded by a force that outnumbered them 60 to 1. What is this? He demanded. Where did these ships come from? Our intelligence. His intelligence officer was shaking. War Master, the numbers are impossible. We are detecting over 50,000 capital ships, fighter craft in the hundreds of thousands. Our sensors cannot even count them all. Gracchus felt something he had not experienced in 300 years of warfare. Fear. A communication signal cut through all channels. Every ship in the system, human and Krell, heard the same voice. This is Fleet Admiral Sun Woo-han of the United Earth Navy. Krell vessels, you have entered human territory and threatened human citizens. You have 20 seconds to power down your weapons and withdraw. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. You have 20 seconds. Starting now. The bridge of the Krell flagship was silent. Officers looked at their war master, waiting for orders. Gracchus stared at the endless wall of human warships that surrounded his fleet. 20 seconds. He thought of the reports he had read about humanity. Primitive, weak, restricted to a single system with a handful of patrol boats. He had laughed at those reports. He had called humans insects. Now he was surrounded by a swarm so vast it darkened the sky. War Master, his weapons officer said, what are your orders? Gracchus was a warrior. He had conquered 17 worlds. He had never retreated from any battle. His pride would not let him flee from creatures he had considered beneath contempt. All ships, he growled. Attack. It was a mistake. The human fleet responded with precision that seemed almost beautiful. Beams of light crossed the void from thousands of points, converging on Krell ships like threads weaving through fabric. The first volley destroyed 40 vessels in less than a second. Their weapons were powerful. A few human ships took damage. One carrier lost a section of hull. Then the human fighters arrived. 200,000 small craft descended on the Krell fleet like a silver tide. They were faster than anything the Krell had ever faced. They slipped through defensive fire like water through fingers. They fired weapons that punched through shields and armor as if they were paper. Krell ships began to explode. War Master Gracchus watched his fleet die. 100 ships gone in the first minute. 200 in the second. His flagship shook as human weapons struck it again and again. War Master, his officer screamed, "We must retreat." Gracchus turned to give the order. He never finished. A beam of light struck the bridge, and everything went white. The battle lasted 4 minutes. When it was over, 500 Krell warships had been reduced to floating debris. Not a single human vessel had been destroyed. At the same moment, across the galaxy, similar scenes played out. Human fleets emerged at 200 strategic points. They appeared above Krell military stations and destroyed them in minutes. They arrived at Council trade routes and took control without firing a shot. They positioned themselves at every major junction in galactic space, demonstrating a reach that should have been impossible. And at the Council station itself, the greatest display of all, 10,000 human warships folded into existence in perfect formation around the moon-sized structure. They did not fire. They did not need to. Their presence alone was enough. Inside the Council chamber, panic had erupted. Species that had ruled the galaxy for millennia scrambled for information. How was this possible? How had humans built such a fleet? How had no one seen it coming? High Arbiter Melox floated at the center of the chaos, trying to restore order. Then the doors of the chamber opened. Ambassador Junho Kim walked in. He was 97 years old now. His body was frail, kept alive by advanced human medicine. But his steps were steady, and his eyes were clear. Behind him walked Admiral Una Park, also aged, but standing tall in her dress uniform. The chamber fell silent. Junho walked slowly to the center platform. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small device. He placed it on the podium. "Do you recognize this?" he asked. Counselor Vorath leaned forward. His stone eyes widened. It was the integration protocols, the same document humanity had signed 50 years ago. 50 years ago, Junho said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "You handed us these chains and called them a welcome gift. You told us to be small, to be quiet, to know our place." He looked around at the hundreds of species watching him, some with fear, some with confusion, some with something that might have been respect. "You believed we accepted your chains. You believed we submitted. You forgot about us." He smiled. "We did not forget about you." Outside, the human fleet hung motionless against the stars. 10,000 ships, carrying enough firepower to destroy the station, and everyone in it 1,000 times over. For 50 years we built in silence. For 50 years we grew in the shadows. You never asked what we were becoming. You never wondered what humans do when someone tries to put us in a cage. Junho stepped back from the podium. "Now you know." The chamber remained silent. No one dared to speak. High Arbiter Melox finally floated forward. For the first time in 3,000 years, the ancient being looked uncertain. "What do you want?" Melox asked. Junho's smile faded. His eyes grew hard. "Everything," he said. "We want everything you tried to take from us. Our freedom, our dignity, our future." He picked up the integration protocols and held them up for everyone to see. "These chains are broken. They will never bind us again." Then he dropped the device on the floor and crushed it beneath his foot. The galaxy held its breath. For 3 days, the human fleet remained in position around the Council Station. For 3 days, the most powerful species in known space watched and waited to see what humanity would do with its impossible strength. Some expected war, some expected revenge, some expected the humans to do what every rising power in history had done. They expected conquest. President Narration stood before the cameras on Earth, preparing to address not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. Her message would be broadcast to every corner of known space. Billions of beings would hear her words. She thought about what Ambassador Junho had told her before she wrote the speech. "We could take everything," he had said. "Our fleet could destroy the Council and claim the galaxy for ourselves. No one could stop us." "But that is not what we want," Nari had replied. The old ambassador had smiled. "No, it is not. And that, President Quan, is what makes us human." Now she stepped up to the podium and spoke. "To the people of Earth and our colonies, to the species of the Galactic Union, to everyone watching across the stars, I am President Narration, leader of the United Human Federation." She paused to let the words settle. 3 days ago, our fleet emerged from 50 years of silence. We revealed a power that no one believed we possessed. Many of you are afraid. Many of you believe we have come to conquer and destroy. I am here to tell you that is not our intention. Her voice grew stronger. 50 years ago, we were offered chains disguised as protection. We were told to be small, to know our place, to accept that we would always be less than the great powers of the galaxy. We refused, not because we wanted war, but because we wanted freedom. Today we have that freedom. No one will ever tell humanity where we can go or what we can become. But freedom is not the same as cruelty. Power is not the same as tyranny. She looked directly into the camera. We do not seek to rule the galaxy. We do not seek revenge for the way we were treated. We seek only what every species deserves: the right to grow, the right to explore, the right to choose our own destiny. To the Krell Empire, which attacked our colonies without provocation, we have no desire to continue this conflict. Withdraw your forces from our territory, and there will be peace. Continue your aggression, and you will face the full strength of our fleet. To the other species of the Union, we offer partnership, not domination. Trade, not tribute. Friendship, not subjugation. The old rules are gone. In their place we propose something new." She held up a document. The Mutual Sovereignty Accords, a treaty between equals. No species above another. No chains wrapped in kind words. True cooperation or peaceful separation. The choice is yours. In the council chamber, species that had ruled for millennia listened in silence. Some felt relief. Some felt suspicion. A few felt something that surprised them. Respect. Counselor Vorath, who had presented the integration protocols 50 years ago, watched the broadcast with burning hatred. He had been humiliated. His empire had been defeated in 4 minutes. He would not accept this. In the days that followed, he tried to build a coalition against humanity. He visited other counselors in secret. He promised favors and threatened consequences. He argued that humanity was a threat that must be destroyed before they grew even stronger. He failed. Too many species were tired of Krell dominance. Too many had suffered under the old system. When humanity offered them equality instead of subjugation, they saw a chance for something better. One by one, species began to sign the Mutual Sovereignty Accords. The Krell Empire stood alone in its refusal. And alone, they were not strong enough to challenge humanity. Vorath raged in his chambers. He plotted revenge. But his plots came to nothing. The galaxy had changed, and he could not change it back. Fleet Admiral Sun Wuhan returned to Earth as a hero. Parades filled the streets. Children waved flags. Veterans who had built the secret fleet in silence finally received recognition for their work. But Sun Wu did not celebrate. He visited the memorial that had been built for the soldiers who had died during the 50 years of preparation. Workers killed in shipyard accidents, pilots lost during secret training exercises, intelligence agents who had given their lives to keep the secret safe. "We won," he said quietly to the names carved in stone. "Because of you, we won." Ambassador Jun-Ho Kim gave one final speech before his retirement. He stood in the council chamber, the same room where he had been handed chains 50 years before. Now it was filled with representatives of species who looked at him not with contempt, but with attention. "I have lived a long life," he said. "I have seen humanity at its worst and its best. I have seen us make terrible mistakes. I have also seen us rise above those mistakes." He looked around the chamber. "You feared us. Perhaps you still do. That fear is understandable. We have shown you power that seemed impossible. But I want you to understand something about humanity. We do not desire power for its own sake. We do not build weapons because we love destruction. We build strength because we have learned, again and again throughout our history, that the weak are never safe, that those without power become victims of those with power. We will never be victims again, but we also do not wish to create new victims. We wish to build a galaxy where no species needs to fear another, where strength is used to protect, not to oppress." He smiled, and for a moment he looked like the young man who had first walked into this chamber so long ago. "That is the human dream. We invite you to share it with us." 100 years later, the galaxy was transformed. Human technology had spread across known space. Medical advances extended lifespans. New transportation networks connected distant worlds. Trade flourished as never before. The old council still existed, but it had changed. Humanity held seats among the senior counselors now, alongside species that had once looked down on them. The integration protocols were displayed in a museum, a reminder of how things used to be. On New Seoul, Governor Min Ji-yoon had long since passed away, but a statue of her stood in the capital city, honoring the woman who had held firm when the enemy fleet filled the sky. On Earth, another statue had been built. Admiral Yuna Park, standing tall in her uniform, looking up at the stars. The inscription beneath it read, "She smiled at their chains and dreamed of stars." And in a quiet corner of the council station, a recording played on loop for visitors who wished to understand how it had all begun. Ambassador Jun-Ho Kim's voice, speaking to frightened leaders in a bunker beneath the earth, 50 years before the emergence. "They think our silence is submission. Let them. History will remember what we built in the dark." A young human child visited the memorial with her parents. She listened to the recording with wide eyes. "Did we really build all those ships in secret?" Her father smiled. "We did." "Why?" He knelt down beside her. "Because someone tried to tell us we couldn't. And nothing makes humans work harder than being told something is impossible." The child looked up at the stars visible through the station's transparent dome. She thought about ships darkening the sky. She thought about ancestors who had kept faith for 50 years. She thought about what it meant to be human. She smiled. Somewhere out there, new challenges waited, new obstacles to overcome, new stars to reach, and humanity was just getting started.